Hi everyone, a very good morning to all of you watching this video. I am Manat Sharma from Olive Board and I'm here with the live mint analysis that we do every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Now before I begin, I just want you guys to tell me whether my audio and video is clear or not so that we can have the class in a smooth and continuous manner. Now this live mint analysis is very important for all regulatory exams because we take up some important news articles from the newspaper, try to discuss the static portion of it, we try to discuss the news in detail and then we do MCQs as well. Okay. Good morning Anurag, Sudarshan. Okay. So before I begin, if you want to download this YouTube class PDF, you can do it from the Olive Board app. Just go to the courses section. There's going to be a separate YouTube class PDFs folder. From here you can download. Okay? So let's take a look as to what we are going to cover today. First news will be related to, do tax cuts really boost the economy? Ab dekho, when we discuss about uh, tax cuts, we basically mean that we are talking about the fiscal policy. We talk about the two policies. One is your fiscal policy and one is your monetary policy. When we talk about monetary policy, it regulates the money supply in the economy, and there are certain qualitative as well as quantitative tools of monetary policy like repo rate, है ना, reverse repo rate, we have bank rate, we have SLR, we have CRR, credit rationing, moral suasion. We have all these tools of monetary policy. When we have to implement the fiscal policy, the tools of fiscal policy include taxes, expenditure, and public debt. Right? Now, if I talk about tax cuts, how does it boost the economy? The usual, thing that we see is that with a reduction in taxes, it is basically an expansionary fiscal policy. Reduction in taxes would mean that people are going to have more disposable income. They'll have more disposable income because they're going to pay less taxes now. They'll have more income in their hand. They will have more money in their hand, more cash in their hand. That means they are going to spend more also. And how do we calculate aggregate demand? Aggregate demand is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So if the spending increases, whether it's consumption spending or investment spending, if that increases, then aggregate demand increases, GDP increases, and then finally economic growth increases. This is what we see. This is what is called the expansionary fiscal policy. Now this is a very nice, you can say, article over here which discusses whether these tax cuts really impact or boost the economy or not. ठीक है, a very good analysis has been done over here since the 1990s, and we are going to see how these tax cuts have actually boosted the economy or not. Fine. Then second news is related to the appellate court which has been launched to hear GST disputes. Again, very very important. So for hearing the GST related disputes, we have an appellate court which has been launched. Then Indian shrimp exporters turn to China after US tariff shock. So now what we are seeing is we are seeing the impact of these tariffs one by one, right? And one impact is that these exporters, especially shrimp exporters, they are turning to China after US tariff shocks. That means we are diversifying our export base. We are diversifying the areas where we send our products, wherein we export our products. Then there's a news related to the Saudi Pakistan Defense Pact and how is it going to impact India. ठीक है? Then then we have to talk about this government set to refresh solar booster scheme, which is a step towards our renewable energy. Can anyone tell me what is our renewable energy target by the year 2030? Renewable energy target. Then green bonds unable to attract investors. We're going to understand what green bonds are. Then we're going to cover a few fact based news and at last MCQ practice. ठीक है? चलिए. Now let's move on to the articles. First articles, do tax cuts really boost the economy? ठीक है? So tax cuts are what? Fiscal policy tools. है ना? Just like we have rate of interest cuts in the monetary policy, similarly tax cuts are part of your fiscal policy. They stimulate economic growth. Their effectiveness, this article examines, is mixed. It is conditional. That means it depends on context, timing, and supporting measures. That means this article is saying that in short, tax cuts are not really enough. We have to have other measures also to have the full impact of these tax cuts. ठीक है? Yes, 500 gigawatt. Yes, Anurag. Right? India has experienced with major tax cuts starting from 1997, then 2008-9, then 2019, GST reforms, and every change has brought in some different results. Let's take a look at it. Fine. If I talk about the 1997-98, it is called the Dream Budget. Here there were sweeping cuts in personal and income tax, income corporate income taxes. So income taxes were reduced a lot. The double taxation of dividends was abolished. Peak customs duty was reduced. Excise duties were simplified. In fact, we had the fifth pay commission wage hikes also, right? Which boosted the purchasing power of the people. What was the result? A reverse cyclical downturn of 1996-97. So there was a cyclical downturn during this period, but because of this reduction in tax rates and increase in this expenditure, it led to a revival of the economy. Stimulated private investment and growth. So private investment and growth also stimulated. Tax collections remain buoyant from 97 to 2002. Can anyone tell me what is the meaning of tax buoyancy? What is the meaning of tax buoyancy? Anyone? There are two terms, tax buoyancy and tax elasticity. What is the difference between the two? From 1997 to 2002, corporate tax में your tax buoyancy is 1.6, income tax में 1.4, custom duties में 1.1, excise duties में 1.0. Now what is the meaning of this? ये तो हमने न्यूज में देख लिया, but what is the meaning of this 1.6, 1.4? किससे ज्यादा होगा तो अच्छा होगा? टैक्स पॉइंट कब होगा? किस लेवल से ज्यादा होगा तो टैक्स पॉइंट होगा? So when we talk about tax buoyancy, it means कि आपके टैक्स बेस के बढ़ने से, आपके टैक्स बेस से बढ़ने पे, टैक्स बेस से बढ़ने से यानी कि आपके जीडीपी के बढ़ने से आपके रेवेन्यू कलेक्शन बढ़ा या नहीं बढ़ा. ठीक है, टैक्स buoyant will be when with an increase in the GDP or with an increase in the tax base, revenue is also increasing. Tax elasticity on the other hand, what does it measure? Tax elasticity measures कि आपके टैक्स रेवेन्यू में कितना चेंज आया विद अ चेंज इन द टैक्स रेट. सपोज आपने टैक्स रेट कम किया तो आपका टैक्स रेवेन्यू में कितना चेंज आया. दिस इज योर टैक्स इलास्टिसिटी. तो यहाँ पे हम बॉयंसी की बात कर रहे हैं. हाउ डू यू कैलकुलेट परसेंटेज चेंज इन टैक्स रेवेन्यू अपॉन परसेंटेज चेंज इन जीडीपी. अगर ये वैल्यू इक्वल टू 1 है, दैट मीन्स टैक्स रेवेन्यू उतने ही बढ़ रहे हैं जितने जीडीपी बढ़ रहा है, इक्वल टू 1. अगर मोर देन 1 है, दैट मीन्स टैक्स रेवेन्यू ग्रोज फास्टर देन जीडीपी, यानी कि जीडीपी जितनी बढ़ रही है उससे ज्यादा टैक्स रेवेन्यू बढ़ रहा है, विच इज हेल्दी, जिससे पता चल रहा है कि टैक्स सिस्टम एफिशिएंट है, बेटर कंप्लायंस है. अगर ये वैल्यू 1 से कम है, इसका मतलब क्या है कि जो टैक्स रेवेन्यू है वो कम आ रहा है हमारे पास, वीक बॉयंसी है. ठीक है, अगर हम इंडिया की बात करें, एक जनरल ट्रेंड की बात करें, तो लॉन्ग टर्म टैक्स बॉयंसी इज यूजुअली अराउंड 1.1 इन इंडिया. ठीक है, जो डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस हैं जैसे इनकम टैक्स, कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स, दे शो बॉयंसी मोर देन 1, और जो इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेस हैं दे आर लाइक क्लोजर टू 1. फाइन. अ बॉयंसी ऑफ एटलीस्ट 1 और स्लाइटली अबव इज कंसिडर हेल्दी. तो एक और एक से ज्यादा थोड़ा सा है तो इट इज हेल्दी. ओके, एंड अगर 1 से बहुत ज्यादा कम है, दैट मीन्स इट इज नॉट अ गुड थिंग. ठीक है, इट इज नॉट अ गुड थिंग एंड वी नीड टू डू सर्टन चेंजेस, राइट. और अगर बहुत हाई है 2 to 3, but it is only for a short period and that may be because of cyclical fluctuations or windfall gains and all. ठीक है, so your tax buoyancy should usually be greater than equal to 1. ठीक है, so थोड़ा सा ये static portion of it. Okay. Acha, Sudarshan, see, what I was trying to say is that tax buoyancy is change in tax revenue upon change in GDP. That means with a change in GDP or with an increase in GDP, how is your tax revenue increasing? Now, this value, if it is equal to 1, that means total revenue that the government is receiving is increasing in the same proportion as GDP. Suppose GDP has increased by 10%, revenue has also increased by 10%. That is what is equal to 1. If it is more than 1, that means tax revenue is increasing more than the increase in GDP, which is a good thing. That means the tax system is efficient. If it is less than 1, that means the tax revenue is not increasing as much as the increase in GDP. That means the tax system is not efficient. And in India, the long term tax buoyancy is around 1.1, which is a good thing. So, an economy should aim for more than equal to 1 as tax buoyancy. Okay, so Darshan, okay, just to understand the meaning of tax buoyancy. Fine. Acha, if I talk about the 2008-9 fiscal stimulus, in 2008, there was a fiscal stimulus. There was three stimulus packages from December 2008 to Feb 2009. Okay, there were excise cuts, 2% cut in service tax, custom duty exemptions for sectors like automobiles. The objective was to support demand and boost consumption. Now, if I talk about the outcomes during this period, then the GDP growth in 2004 to 8 was 7.9%, and post stimulus from 2009 to 13, 6.2%. So, what does it show? That even after bringing in these tax cuts, the GDP did not grow as much. Fiscal deficit worsened from 3.4 to 5.8. Okay, this led to fragile five label for India. Which are the fragile five countries? This is your homework. You're going to check out the fragile five countries. Okay, so India became one of those fragile five countries. So what does this show? That tax cuts did not necessarily, give us the same outcome as the 1997-98 dream budget. Then in 2019, there was a corporate tax cut. Corporate tax rate for domestic firms cut from 30% plus surcharge to 22%. है ना? A reduction of around 8%. Intended to attract investment, boost private sector spending, and stimulate job creation. But private corporate investment as a percentage of GDP stagnated during this period. 2019-20 में 10.2%, 2021 में 8.8% because of the pandemic impact, 21-22 में 10.4%, 22-23 में 11.2%, 23-24 में 10.1%. That means again it did not give a positive impact in 2019 corporate tax cut also. Then you have the recent GST cuts. They did not fully translate into lower consumer prices. Transmission of GST rate cuts is in the growth is weak. Firms prioritize profits over passing benefits to the consumers, and there was muted demand boost. What does it show? The tax cuts alone are not sufficient to boost growth. We need to its effectiveness depends on the timing, the complementary policies, demand conditions. That means tax cuts alone cannot do anything. We have to bring in certain other measures also to boost the economy. This is what this the crux of this news is. Fine. Then there is this appellate court which has been launched. GST appellate court or appellate tribunal has been launched over here. Okay. So Nirmala Sitharaman ji, she has launched the GST appellate tribunal to expedite the resolution of disputes between businesses and the tax department, ensure fairness in justice delivery. Okay, so for what? For resolution of disputes, we have this appellate tribunal. It is called the true symbol of justice for taxpayers. It represents the evolution of reforms in India. So GST started in 2017 as one nation, one tax, one market. Okay, and now they have added one nation, one forum for fairness and certainty as well. Okay, one forum for fairness and certainty, that in one forum only all the disputes are going to be resolved. Now, this GST appellate tribunal, it aims to become a pillar of trust for businesses, a catalyst for India's sustained economic growth. Now, the portal filing will start from December 2025 onwards. Okay, it will ensure specialized nationwide forum. It will ensure consistency in interpretation, predictability in outcomes, credibility to the appellate processes. It is going to, be very easy for the taxpayers, for the tax administration. Transparency will be ensured. Now, if you see as of now, around 4,83,000 cases are pending, and they are going to be filed before this appellate tribunal, and these are going to be fast track. These are going to be solved in a fast track manner. Okay? Old disputes are going to be given priority first of all. ठीक है, and a limitation period for filing appeals is extended to 30th June 2026. So this is, apart from this dispute resolution, it will also function as the authority for advance ruling for GST. ठीक है, I hope this is clear. Then we have a news related to the shrimp exporters who are turning to China after US tariff shock. ठीक है, so because of these 50% tariffs, they are now exploring other markets, and now more and more exports are going to China of this shrimp. ठीक है, if I talk about the background, tariff, it has created challenges for Indian exporters because it has become very difficult to remain competitive against Ecuador, Vietnam, Indonesia, because as compared to them, our tariffs are higher, and therefore Indian exporters, they are increasing the shipments to China. They are diversifying exports to Europe, UAE, Japan, South Korea, other Asian markets. ठीक है, they are negotiating with US buyers. They're tapping the domestic demand in cities like Delhi, Bengaluru, Hyderabad. That is what they're doing. ठीक है. Now, why China is emerging as a crucial market? Because it has a well-established seafood processing industry. That is why we are able to export to them. Plus, they have re-export capability also to duty-free markets. Chinese buyers are also entering into forward contracts with the Indian exporters. China, which is the second largest importer of Indian shrimps after US, is now likely to become the top importer. अब US को तो we are sending less exports of shrimp, so China might become the top. China might come to the top. Unexpectedly become a blessing in disguise for Indian shrimp exporters who are opening new opportunities in China. If I talk about financial year 24, then India exported 7.5 billion dollars worth of marine products, and exports to US were 2.5 billion dollars. In financial year 25, India exported 7.39 billion dollars of marine products, and 2.68 billion dollars went to the US. During April to July financial year 25, exports of marine products grew 18% year on year. Experts say that China, which was seen as a secondary market, now its importance has increased, and now China might be the top importer from India. ठीक है, Chinese processors, they buy raw shrimp from India. ठीक है, that was the news about. Then we have a news related to the Saudi Pakistan Defense Pact, which resets India's strategic challenge. Now, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, they have signed a defense pact. It's like a NATO type of agreement ki, if there's an attack on one of these countries, then it will be deemed attack on both these countries. ठीक है, so on September 17th 2025, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan signed the strategic mutual defense agreement, which represents a major shift in West Asian and South Asian geopolitics. It's, what is the most important clause over here, which is going to impact everyone, is that an act of aggression against either country will be treated as an act of aggression against both. That means it is like a defense commitment that they've made. So if there is any aggression against Pakistan, it is going to be deemed that Saudi Arabia pe, the attack has been, put on Saudi Arabia, like that. Fine. Plus, you know that Pakistan is the only nuclear armed Muslim majority nation, and this has really strengthened Saudi Arabia's security architecture in the Gulf region. ठीक है, if we talk about the historical context, we can go back to 1946. ठीक है, Prince Faisal of Saudi Arabia supported Pakistan's demand for independence in the UN. Then when 1947 Pakistan was created, then Saudi Arabia became one of the first states to recognize it. 1960s में King Faisal of Saudi Arabia famously described Pakistan as the number one friend in the world. So Saudi Arabia has always been with Pakistan. Then in 1967, a formal defense pact was signed, under which Pakistani military experts and advisors played a very important role in training and modernizing Saudi armed forces. And Saudi Arabia provided Pakistan with economic assistance, financial aid in return of this. Then in 1971, Bangladesh Liberation War, Saudi Arabia, they opposed कि नहीं, Bangladesh should not be created. Fine, so there's a long-standing relationship since independence of Pakistan between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. If I talk about this SMDA, this defense agreement between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, it is a big geopolitical win for Pakistan. Why? Because now it gets Saudi Arabia's financial and defense support. Plus, Pakistan is the only nuclear power in Muslim world which is going to benefit the Gulf, this Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region. It strengthens geopolitical influence of Pakistan in the Islamic world, provides strategic deterrence against India. Pakistan is going to get funding, legitimacy, stronger international position because of this pact. And for Saudi Arabia, what is the importance? That Pakistan's military manpower and defense expertise will be provided to Saudi Arabia. And the security architecture of Saudi Arabia is going to enhance. And Saudi Arabia might balance against Iran's growing regional influence. It institutionalizes a reliable military partnership and a backed state with us. Right? India has in the past 2 decades invested heavily in strengthening ties with Saudi Arabia in the wider Gulf region. This is what is the implication for India. Stick in 2014, an MOU was signed on defense cooperation between India and Saudi Arabia. Economic trade and energy partnerships were strengthened, which made Saudi Arabia one of the India's largest energy suppliers. Saudi Arabia's neutral stance in 2019 when India abrogated Article 317 Jammu and Kashmir, you know, when we expected that they're going to take Pakistan's side, they took a neutral stance. That is because India has tried to strengthen ties with Saudi Arabia. But because of this defense pact, there are important implications for India. If there's any India Pakistan military conflict, then obviously Saudi Arabia will not remain neutral and they might, stay with Pakistan and take Pakistan's side. And Pakistan could leverage this pact to internationalize the Kashmir issue. So this Kashmir issue might not remain just our issue, it might be internationalized. India's efforts to keep Asia as a strategic neutral zone might face setbacks. So we have always kept West Asia, the Middle East, as a neutral zone. So there's a strategic challenge for India because it is trying to grow its partnerships in the Gulf region, but because of this pact, this might be impacted. Okay, so this strategic mutual defense agreement has been signed by Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. And for Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, this is a very important thing. But for India, it might increase the strategic challenge in West Asia. Okay. Then government sets to refresh solar booster schemes. We have the solar booster scheme through the PLI, production linked incentive scheme. So government is preparing a new incentive scheme. Why? For boosting the production of wafers and ingots. Now these wafers and ingots, they are very very important in solar panel manufacturing or solar manufacturing. ठीक है, in the solar photovoltaic modules, solar PV modules mein this is very important. So they might boost the production. To boost the production, incentives are going to be there from the government side. ठीक है, India seeks to reduce dependence on imports from China, and that is why we are focusing on domestic manufacturing, trying to boost the domestic manufacturing. Right? Union Ministry of New and Renewable Energy is expected to utilize crore from the existing incentive scheme. And this fund is part of the PLI scheme for the National Program on High Efficiency Solar PV Modules. What program? Remember this. National Program on High Efficiency Solar PV Modules. This was initially approved in April 2021 and outlay was 4500 crore. ठीक है, September 2022 में government announced the second tranche of this PLI scheme with 19,500 crore, and out of this 13,937 crore has already been allocated, and 5,563 crore is remaining, which is going to be in this incentive scheme, which is going to be used in this incentive scheme. ठीक है, polysilicon is the raw material which is used to make ingots. Ingots are then developed into wafers. Wafers are followed by cells and finally assembled into solar PV modules. So now we are going to boost the manufacturing of this. Okay. So new schemes will specifically target wafers and ingots production, and it is different. It is going to be different from the PLI scheme. Right, under the existing PLI scheme, manufacturers receive incentives for 5 years from the commissioning of their plants. Incentives are based on sale of high efficiency solar PV modules. ठीक है, you will get incentives only if you sell these high efficiency solar PV modules. Now there's a need for change. Why? Because the implementation has become very slow. ठीक है, in June 2024, the deadlines have been extended. Technology sourcing and component supply from China, we saw delays. That is why we're trying to boost the manufacturing. ठीक है, now this deadline, extending the deadline for the second tranche to financial year 27. This is the target now. We've extended it by 1 year. It was supposed to end, the second tranche, the commissioning deadlines was supposed to end on April 2026, but now it has been extended till financial year 27. Okay, so we want to basically, our goal is to fully indigenize our solar value chain, and we are going to focus on local partnerships by 2028. Okay, so basically we are trying to boost our domestic manufacturing capability so that we do not have to depend on any kind of import. Okay, then we have a news related to green bonds. See, green bonds are uh, tools to raise money. Bonds are what? Tools to raise money. So when you issue bonds, when a corporate issues a bond, it is called a corporate bond. When a government issues a bond, it is called a government bond. So they issue bonds in exchange for money. These are tools to raise money. Now, when this money is utilized in the environmental friendly sectors, these are considered as green bonds. Now, these green bonds are unable to attract investors. Why? Despite the center's push. So, if I talk about the financial year 24-25, the green bond program saw the toughest year. So, this was launched in 22-23 for mobilizing money, but there's a very slow progress in this. The investors are not interested in putting their money in green bonds. And therefore, Center may revise the 25-26 budget target for mobilizing 25,342 crore for climate focused projects. Okay. The government attempted in 25-26, government attempted a single 30-year green bond issuance of 10,000 crore. And it was able to only raise 5,000 crore at a yield of 6.878%. But if we talk about the 10-year government bond yield, it closed at 6.491%, while the 30-year bond ended at 7.205%. That means people are not showing interest in the green bonds because they fail to create a distinct identity from conventional government bond. How are these green, bonds different? They're not able to establish their different identity, and investors are showing little appetite for these, for the greenium. Okay, for this green premium. And what is this green premium? It refers to lower yield than that investors accept on green bond compared to a conventional bond, reflecting their willingness to support sustainability goals and help issuers access cheaper funding. So they are not really attracted by this. They have very less appetite for this green premium or greenium. There is weak demand in India. Okay, there are there are lack of dedicated green investment vehicles in India. Budget documents reveal that actual green bond sales increased to 25,297.89 crore in 24-25, which is higher than this 20,785 crore. But still, this is short of our target of 32,000 crore approximate. So these investors are not interested in buying these green bonds only. Okay? Government had to reject bids worth 10,000 crore in 24-25 because there was weaker interest. So there's a need to develop a deeper differentiated market for sustainable finance in India. I am giving you a homework here. You are going to find out some solutions, or provide some way forward as to how we can improve this green bond penetration, how we can increase the interest of the investors so that they buy more and more green bonds. What policies do you think can be followed, or what can actually be done at different levels, at the government's level, at the domestic level, or at the investor level, at the regulatory bodies level? What do you think? Okay, what are the policy experts suggesting? That we should have regulatory changes to boost demand. Sovereign green bonds already qualify for this SLR criteria, that they can use these bonds as a statutory liquidity ratio. ठीक है, but carving them out as a special subcategory with a compulsory minimum allocation could help create stronger and differential demand. Right, so we need to do something or the other to boost the green bonds. Okay, so these were the major news. Apart from that, we have fact-based news like tech sovereignty is a must. India can't afford to be a digital colony. See, if anyone of you is attending from my paid batches, I talked about new colonialism, right? This concept of new colonialism. See, when we talk about colonialism, it's like making, the developing countries the colonies of the developed countries. Like we had the British government in India. Yeah, the colonial government in India, the British rule in India. Right. Now, there are new forms of colonialism emerging. Through what? Through the big giants like Google and all. Now, what is this article basically saying? That India's technology is on the rise. Like we have Aadhaar, we have UPI, we have space exploration, defense innovation. We are doing good in this technology part, है ना? But still, despite these achievements, India is still dependent on foreign digital technology like search engines, social media, cloud infrastructure, semiconductors, software. We are still dependent on the foreign countries. And most of these companies are dominated by US and Chinese companies. Now, India's digital backbone is basically controlled by these big giants like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Oracle. And this is a new form of colonialism, digital colonialism. And we are dependent on them and they can change our policies, they can impact our sovereignty and integrity based on this influence that they have and this dependence that we have on them. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has repeatedly pushed for self reliance, vocal for local. Almost every digital layer from cloud to servers, networking gear, semiconductors, all these are foreign controlled. That means we are heavily dependent on these foreign countries. That means this might turn into a digital colony. That through this digital aspect, these countries might try to impact our sovereignty and integrity. For example, Naira Energy, which is an Indian oil venture, faced supply restrictions due to Western sanctions. So dependency makes India exposed to these geopolitical risks, these crossfires. Today's dependence on foreign tech firms is compared with how colonial trading companies they once dominated in India. So we have like platforms like YouTube, WhatsApp, Amazon, Instagram. They are they're dominating India's online ecosystem. ठीक है? When TikTok was banned, Instagram Reels filled the gap. That means India is, very much reliant on these global platforms. And artificial intelligence has become a challenge because US firms they dominate the AI market. That means we are, becoming more and more dependent on the foreign countries. And this is kind of new kind of colonialism. Between 2013 2024, private AI investment in US was $471 billion. China committed $191 billion. India's figure was only $3.1 billion, which showed a massive gap. There is need for an urgent action. Without serious funding and policy support, Indian startups they cannot compete at the global level. India requires bulk government orders for indigenous products. We need to support the local innovators. Technology sovereignty means that building on end-to-end ecosystem in India covering semicons, your electronics, software, 5G, 6G, clean energy, defense, tech, quantum computing, biotech, cybersecurity, we have to, focus on indigenization. India cannot afford to be a digital colony. It has to focus on strategic independence in technology. Okay. So this was a very beautiful article, very good article, which compares, India's dominance in this technology part on the foreign countries, and this might turn out into a digital colony. India might turn out to be a digital colony, which is going to impact our sovereignty and integrity. Then we have a news related to China, which floods the world with cheap exports after Trump's tariffs. China's export engine has remained unstoppable despite these US tariffs. China is still, in a $1.2 trillion trade surplus. These Chinese manufacturers, they have not backed down because of these US tariffs. China hit an all-time high in August. Exports to Africa and Southeast Asia were on record levels. Chinese exports causing concerns globally because they might lead to dumping. What is dumping? When you sell the products at a very very low price in the foreign countries, and now when you sell it at a very very low price, and that really impacts the other domestic industries. Mexico has imposed high tariffs up to 50% on Chinese products. Indian authorities have received 50 applications to investigate goods. We saw in the previous, LiveMint analysis classes also that India is judging that China is trying to, dump Indian markets with the goods, which is going to really impact our domestic industries. Indonesia is trying to monitor these rise in Chinese exports. Officials warn Mexico to be cautious before raising tariffs further because China is pushing back strongly. Protectionism worldwide has intensified due to China's competitive pricing. The Chinese companies are rebounding strongly in the new markets and they're flooding the international markets. China's shipments of computers, phones, parts, they dominate many markets, including Europe and Australia. China has effectively shifted exports towards diverse global markets. China is basically flooding the international market, which is going to create a glut in the international economy. It is going to create problems for countries like India. Yeah. Then another article is related to, MSME payments dispute resolution. The government is planning central role in the MSME payment dispute resolution. So MSME ministry is planning to empower the central government to impanel private online distribution resolution firms to address delayed payment cases. So whatever delayed payment cases are there for the MSMEs, in that case, MSME ministry is planning that online dispute resolution firms should be there, private ODR. The ministry had already launched a dedicated ODR portal in June for MSMEs to resolve these delayed payments. But only state governments as of now they have the power to bring in these ODR firms, right? But now proposal is that we are going to grant similar powers to the central government also. They can also allow to impanel private ODR service providers so that transparency, efficiency, speed in resolving delayed payment disputes can be there. So, state governments, according to the MSMED Act, they have the powers to handle these delayed payment disputes. Now, they are going to refer to the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms as well. The central MSME ministry, they want a similar mechanism at the central level also. ठीक है? So, the lack of sufficient private dispute resolution institutions in certain regions, especially like Northeast and Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, is a big challenge. In these kind of cities, in these kind of areas, dispute resolution mechanisms are not very robust. A state level facilitation councils, they have not yielded positive results, and that is why at the central government level also we want a similar kind of system. ठीक है? Next is related to this government capex, government capital expenditure. They may top budget amid slack private spending. So the center has fiscal space to increase capital expenditure by 20 to 30,000 crore for financial year 26. That means the government might increase the capital expenditure, which is very important because if capital expenditure is increased, this is a long term investment and will impact the economy in a very positive manner. The government aims to lift infrastructure spending beyond the budgeted 11.21 trillion trillion rupees for financial year 26. ठीक है, if I talk about financial year 25, capex, center's capex was 4.15 trillion rupees in the first half, reached 10.52 trillion by year end. Financial year 24's capex target was 10 trillion, with 4.9 trillion spent in the first half and 9.5 in the year end. Now, experts are believing that boosting the central capex can spur demand and incomes, which is going to really accelerate economic growth. It will promote growth by opening space for private investment. That is what this article is about. Okay, so all these were the important news articles from the newspaper. I hope everything is clear to all of you. If you guys want to connect with me beyond these sessions, then Mannat Educator is my Telegram handle. You can connect with me on Telegram. Okay, I hope you guys have understood. If there is any doubt, you can write down in the comment section and ask me. And let's do a few MCQs. Let's see whether you guys have understood or not. ठीक है? चलिए. First question. Which of the following is correct regarding the newly launched GST Appellate Tribunal? It will start functioning from January 2025 and will only deal with new GST disputes. The tribunal is also is called a true symbol of justice for taxpayers, and filing of cases will commence from December 2025. The limitation period for filing appeals has been reduced to March 2026. The tribunal will not have any role in advance ruling matters under GST. You have to identify the correct answer. Quickly give me the answer in the comment section, Anurag, Sudarshan, and all those who are attending the session. You have to identify the correct statement regarding this GST Appellate Tribunal. Read the question and give me the answer, all of you. Anurag Singh is saying 1B. Anybody else? Sudarshan is saying B. The correct answer is B. Absolutely correct. It is called a true symbol of justice for taxpayers, and filing of cases will commence from December 2025. Question 2. Why has China emerged as a crucial destination for Indian shrimp exporters recently? Because China eliminated import duties on all shrimp from India. As India banned shrimp exports to the US and Europe, China became the only viable market. Because Ecuador and Vietnam stopped exporting shrimps to China, leaving India as the only supplier. Due to US imposing a 50% tariff on Indian shrimp, making China more attractive with its seafood processing and re-export strengths. Question number 2. Absolutely correct. It is D, due to US imposing 50% tariff on Indian shrimp, making China more attractive with its seafood processing and re-export strengths. Right. Third question. What is the main implication of Saudi Pakistan Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement signed in 2025? It formalizes defense cooperation where aggression against one will be treated as aggression against both. It reduces Pakistan's dependence on China and eliminates its role in the Gulf region. It weakens Saudi Arabia's role in West Asia, isolates it from GCC states. It ensures India's inclusion in Saudi led Gulf security arrangements. Third question. Yes, absolutely correct. It formalizes defense cooperation where aggression against one will be treated as aggression against both. Question 4. Which of the following statement is correct regarding government's upcoming solar incentive scheme? The new scheme will continue to provide incentives only for high efficiency solar PV modules. It is expected to utilize an unused sum of 5500 crore from the existing PLI scheme. Deadline for the second tranche of PLI scheme has been reduced by 1 year. The scheme will mainly focus on promoting polysilicon production only. What is the answer for question number 4? Hanji, what is the answer? Correct regarding government's upcoming solar incentive scheme. So the correct answer is B. It is expected to utilize an unused sum of 5,500 crore. Okay? Not A, it is B. Yes, Anurag, B is the correct answer. Okay? चलिए. Why has India's green bond program struggled to attract investors despite government efforts? Because the yield on green bonds is much higher than conventional bonds. Because sovereign green bonds are not eligible for SLR. Because Reserve Bank of India has stopped supporting green bond program. Because India lacks dedicated green investment vehicles to create sustained demand. Fifth question. Fifth question. What's the answer? Anurag is saying D. Sudarshan is saying D, which is absolutely correct. India lacks dedicated green investment vehicles to create sustained demand. What does the article emphasize as the key requirement for India to avoid becoming a digital colony? Increasing imports of advanced digital technology from US and China, building technology sovereignty through indigenous development and reducing foreign dependence, strengthening trade partnerships with global tech giants for cheaper access, allowing foreign companies to fully control India's AI and digital infrastructure. Sixth question. What's the answer? How can we avoid becoming a digital colony? Yes, absolutely correct. By building technology sovereignty through indigenous development and reducing foreign dependence. Very good. Seventh question. Center has fiscal space to increase capex by dash in financial year 26 if private sector spending remains subdued due to global headwinds. 5,000 to 10,000 crore, 10,000 to 15,000 crore, 20,000 to 30,000 crore, or 20,000 to 30,000 lakh. How much can the central government increase the capital expenditure for financial year 26? Absolutely correct. 20 to 30,000 crore. Very good. What new power is the MSME ministry considering giving to the central government regarding MSME delayed payment disputes? To directly pay MSME their dues, To impanel private online dispute resolution firms for resolving payment disputes, to take over all state government functions related to MSME, to abolish all dispute resolution councils. Question number 8. Right, absolutely correct. To impanel private online dispute resolution firms, ODR firms, for resolving payment disputes. What is the primary reason China's export engine has remained strong despite high US tariffs? China has fully stopped exporting to the US and relies only on domestic demand. China has imposed equally high tariffs on US goods, balancing trade. China reduced production of key goods like computers and phones. China has diversified exports to markets like Africa, Southeast Asia, Europe, and Australia. Ninth question. Primary reason China's export engine has remained strong despite high US tariffs. Absolutely correct. China has diversified exports to markets like Africa, Southeast Asia, Europe, and Australia. Okay, so that is all from my side, everyone. This is what I wanted to discuss with you. I hope this session was beneficial. Apart from that, if you want to connect with me beyond these sessions, Mannat Educator is my Telegram handle. You can connect with me over here. Okay, that is all from my side. I wish you all the best. Keep studying, everyone, and I will see you all in my next one. Okay, Sudarshan, you're welcome. If there's any doubt, you can ask me. Otherwise, we're going to end the session over here. Okay, Anurag.